30. And if people read my books, my first one, Strategic 2.0, Her Plan, Her Powers, Her Purpose, you would read that I made a promise to my dad when I turned 31 that I'd make him proud of me. And right after that, he passed away. And so I've been living this journey of being my best self, of giving people advice about how to be their best self. And we're going to talk about some of that today. But listen, I got my man, Kevin Carroll. You know what I love about our community of creators, innovators, and marketers? You know, I'm talking to one of my homeboys, Amari Oliver, and I was like, yo, listen, I'm doing this. And he's like, what? That's my homeboy. It's a small community out there. But
Yes.
let me rightfully introduce you. And I don't write many things down, but I had to write this. So this is the master of pivot, and what a perfect time to have conversation, because brands are trying to pivot to be relevant. People are trying to pivot. We've never seen as many people file for unemployment, people getting furloughed. So this is going to be an amazing conversation. So listen, he went from the Air Force into physical training, right? And then he became an athletic trainer for the NBA. We're going to talk about that pivot because I love this story. He's an innovator. He was at Nike. He's a celebrated author, speaker, coach. Yo, this dude is so dope. Um, and he has really paved his own way. So I'm going to introduce you to Kevin Carroll so that we can get right into the questions. And Carroll, Casey, I want to give you a couple minutes just to say a couple things about yourself, because I know I could not do that justice.
So no, it's Michelle. It's so wonderful to be connected to you, and even more so through, like you said, community. And I'm all
Yeah.
about community. That's my whole thing. My whole thing is about belonging and community. And Washington Speakers Bureau, I've been a part of their community well over 10 years, and they've been amazing. And just so crazy it is, I've gotten to know the offspring, the children of people who are
Oh,
executives
wow.
at Washington Speakers Bureau. That's how much
Love that.
community and connection we've been able to create over the years. And so I'm thrilled that we're getting opportunity to have this conversation today. And even more so, I'm thrilled to be sharing some insights and some thoughts around the idea of how do you deal with some difficult, because we're dealing with some difficult
Yeah.
right now. How do we deal with uncertainty? How do you show up each day when there is uncertainty, when there isn't necessarily this clarity around when we're going to get beyond this, but we know we're going to, we just
Yeah.
don't know when. So that
Yeah.
makes people stay in flux, and that's an unusual and unsettling position. But I think that as I've learned through my journey, and I think you put it aptly, my pivoting, it wasn't a word I knew, it was just a feeling I had that I needed to do. And that's been the way I've been operating since I was, young. When I was 6, I had to pivot because my parents left. So I
Yeah.
had to pivot and figure out, how do I create family? How do I create community? How do I create belonging? And those early years were the formative years of how I operate today as an adult, as an entrepreneur, as an author, as a catalyst, any of those things, as a father, grandfather. That's right, y'all. Black don't crack. Don't forget that.
What?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, that's a
Two
whole
sons,
nother
right?
presentation. That's a whole nother present. 2 sons and a bonus daughter. So
Oh,
yes, so there's a
wow.
whole
Love
nother
that.
conversation to go into that. But I think even more so recognizing showing up for everything and everyone in an authentic way. That's what I've been trying to do since I was younger. And I've learned that get in where you fit in, find your community, find how you belong, and stay true to that. And I think that's what's really allowed me to show up on the regular and to be very present for people and to be seeing, as one of my friends said, you kind of peek around the corner from time to time. And I said, I just don't necessarily, I'm not some visionary. I just get a sense, right? And I trust my intuition. I pay attention to my intuition quite a bit. So this conversation that we're going to have today, I'm just thrilled to be able to have this with you, a like-minded spirit and a kindred spirit to energy and showing up. And
Yeah.
I'm just excited about this.
Love that. And I think I'm gonna assign an adjective to you, and you can accept it or not. But what I really believe that you've been is curious. And a lot of brands
Oh
that
my
have
God,
succeeded, right?
nailed
And
it.
people that have succeeded, they're curious about their surroundings. I mean, they read, they pay attention, they're tuning into, and they're using their intuition to attach themselves to meaningful things. And I think you've done that expertly.
I've always been curious. It's so funny. So my hat
Oh wow,
has
look at that. I didn't know
right,
that.
has the symbol. It's called the interrobang. So the question
Yeah.
mark is about curiosity. The exclamation mark is about bang, bringing some heat. right? And so
Love
my
that.
buddy Jeff Henderson, he lives in New York City. He said, "You like the human and tarot bag, right? You always curious and you're always bringing energy." And so the more that I started to realize that, I said, "Let me own that." So I've
Yeah.
always been a curious spirit. I've always been a person to ask those questions and want to learn. And I've always been curious about other people. So I've
Yeah.
always loved to know,
Love
what's
that.
your story? What's your story? What are you
Yeah.
about? Because my attitude is, if you shine, I shine.
Yeah.
So I've always been
So
that way.
love that. So let me ask you this because there's probably 500,000, Instagram lives going on right now and Facebook live. And like we're seeing people, and what I'm seeing is a lot of quality, but not a lot. I mean, a lot of quantity, but not a
Yeah.
lot of quality. So let's talk about how you do a virtual event. What are the characteristics if brands and or people are trying to host virtual events? How do
Hmm.
they do that correctly? Like, what are the three things that they could take away to exercise that successfully?
So I think for brands to, and individuals, if you're wanting
Yeah.
to do an Instagram live or a live stream or some kind of a virtual event, I think first and foremost, you got to know your audience, right? So how are you
Yeah.
knowing that audience? That's really important for you to know your audience so that you're very specific in the way you're delivering that message and not trying to be for everyone, right?
Okay,
Making
please let
sure.
me put a pin on that. Please, no, I need you to say that again because it's so important. Come on, Casey, give it to me again. I'm the
Not
choir director
trying to
right
be
now.
for everyone.
Yeah,
Don't do that.
yeah,
Because what ends up happening is you start faking who you are,
yeah,
and it will show. Your
yeah,
lack of being genuine, being authentic, right? Which is a word that is overused, but is a real word, right? It's
yeah,
finding a
yeah,
way to be authentic in the way that you show up, the language you use, the messaging that you're sharing. All those things are really important. And so I think knowing your audience is critical. The second thing is, okay, so how do I want to engage with them? What kind of
hmm,
experience do I want to create for them? And I think that goes into, oh, do I want it to be really, specific, dropping all kinds of, research, of insights, resources, all these things? Or do I want it to be entertaining and light, right, and joy filled? Or do I want to make
yeah,
sure that I can bring a little bit of both in there? But you have to have a very specific kind of a voice, the way that you want to deliver that, and know your voice, but also know what the audience has an appetite for. And then
yeah,
lastly is, what are you leaving behind for them? What are those
mm,
leave behinds, those resources, but also what's that call to action? So how do I
yeah,
challenge you to do something to raise your game after this experience? And so I think the
yeah,
more that we start to think about it in those terms, you could win virtually. But I've also learned and been told many times, Michelle, you got to bring a little bit of heat, some energy. You can't
yeah.
be, Ferris Bueller's teacher level, right? You can't be, droning on and talking. And so I've been really thinking about more like talk length, right? Really
Yes,
short
I agree.
hits, right? Really making sure you're bringing digestible information in a time frame, because it's hard to keep people's attention. And I don't know how many of these you've been doing, but one of the things I noticed, oh my gosh, I'm so tired after a conversation
Right.
on my device, and I'm starving.
Yeah.
Starving. I could eat everything except please, thank you, and come again on the menu. Like, I'm so hungry, right? And just
Oh,
craving carbs. So I know the level of energy required for you to be engaging on a screen is even greater than being in a live audience. So
yeah,
take
for
good
sure.
care of you to show up the right way. So those are those three things, right? Is identifying, clearly who your audience is, and don't try to be something you're not. Making sure, really making sure that how I want to engage with them, and then what are those leave behinds? What's that call to action? What's that rally cry? Those three things I think really work well if you want to deliver, a meaningful, and I think one that has reverberation right beyond that moment,
Yeah.
virtual event.
I'm going to add one thing. I think this is a great time because I love that. And I was going to recap it for you, but you already did that because you're an expert. Good job, Casey. But I want to just elevate it because I think that now is a great time for brands to actually ask themselves, who am I? Right. And people to ask
Yes.
themselves, who am I? Because what they're doing is they're trying to find out who their consumers. And then you're right, they don't have the right message because they haven't really looked at themselves in the mirror. Like, am I a good
Yes.
brand? Am I a bad brand? Who's my
Yes.
customer? Who's my client? Has it changed, pivoted? So I think that is really a great time for them to figure out who they are. So as we're talking about this whole virtual experience, one of the things that I think, and I'm not gonna like, I don't blow smoke. If anybody knows me, like I truly am a girl from Oakland. What I think the Washington Speaker Bureau has done well is like they connected us. They looked at our
Mm,
backgrounds. They knew there would be a conversation that was meaningful. They knew that we together, because of our experience, like they did a little bit of research. They didn't have me just speak to anybody or have you speak to anybody, right? There is a synergy there that is authentic. And I think that's another critical component. Like, just don't have any guests, any content, anything. Like, make sure that it's relevant in the time. So, how do you think? And I love to go off script. So how do you, because I think companies are really trying to figure out not only virtual to their consumers, but virtual to their employee base. Listen, people
mm.
are discouraged. They are, you know, trying to figure this out. And I don't believe they're using their time. So what do you think? What do you think? How do brands actually engage their employees in a time like this in a meaningful way?
This is a crazy time for employee engagement.
Yeah,
Brands will
right?
really show who they are, right, as relates to their people
Yeah.
first, right? And so, how are you being really intentional about the way you're delivering content first and foremost to your team?
Yeah.
So, if we're not doing it internally, it is not going to work externally. So we got to rally our people first. And so it's actually really interesting how many times I've been asked, could you come on our morning huddle? Could you come on our team call? Could you come and show up and give us 10 minutes of insight, whatever? And so I've been dropping little nuggets all over globally, actually, since the pandemic happened. And what I've been discovering is the organizations who are having the insight and the ability to say, we need to take care of our people first.
Yeah.
Who do we need to reach out to for some inspo? Who do we need to identify that would be a good voice for them first? And how do we start giving the right messages, but also resources to them on the regular, not just
Yeah.
one hit and like in this business as usual. And I think a lot of leaders have had to pivot and find new ways to lead on a virtual platform because
Yeah, for
you don't want to
sure.
lose your culture, but your culture is going to be reimagined a bit. And so you have to start to think about how do we still deliver our culture in a meaningful way that's still on brand, on culture, but in this new, brave new world, if you will. So I've been
Yeah.
discovering that resources are really important, but the organizations, talent development, HR teams, they're the ones that are really critical within organizations. And I've been seeing some wonderful efforts from those individuals, the ones that really have caught their breath and they basically, now what? What are we going to do now? And are really being proactive in the way they're approaching their team. So I think it's so important right now. The level of employee engagement is critical. Having a curatorial process, so you've got a plan on how you're hitting them
Yeah.
and giving them nuggets and dropping those pearls on a schedule for them so that you're feeding them on the regular and then asking them to do what you need to do outside of here for our consumers and for the work that we do for
Yeah.
the brand.
Yeah. And I think, I'm not a big fan of social like ERGs just becoming a social thing. But what I do believe now is such a great opportunity for brands to also just say thank you and have gatherings about, right? You know what I mean? And then the other thing is this is like it's like I'm sitting at, many, many tables over my long career. It's like they know I'm sitting here, right? They know that I'm a Black woman. They know that I buy a bunch of stuff because they can look at my wardrobe, and I have kids who are always on Instagram with something new on. Why are they not asking me because I'm also a consumer? And what a great opportunity for brands to tap into their employee base and do an internal focus group about what do you want? What do you need?
Yeah.
What are you seeing? What's going on? Because there's so much information, and then they can curate what to give them, right?
And what are you
But they
tuning into, right? Because this is so revealing
exactly.
right now, right? When you're dealing with some stress, you're dealing with some strife, right?
Yes.
People start tuning into things that help them navigate difficult.
Absolutely.
So you
Absolutely.
should be asking your people that. So what are you tuning
Hello?
into? What are your top five, right?
Yes.
Even ask like, what's your go-to comfort food right now?
So
In
easy,
fact, Michelle,
right?
what is your go-to comfort food right now?
Yo, let me tell you nothing so that I can fit in this black shirt right here because I'm not coming out of COVID. I love yo. I'm 50. I'm trying to look like I'm 44.
So
Okay, no, 34.
there's that continuum, right? There's the there you go. Okay, throw them guns up. I see you. I see you.
Yeah, yo,
AF,
I'm
I see you.
serious.
I
Oh,
see you.
yo, and listen, yo, Casey and my kids are on a workout plan. Yo, they're like, mom is a drill sergeant. She home too much. She got to get the hell out of here because we all working out. And my husband is super fit. He's in the army and he's an attorney. Yo, we ain't playing.
Listen,
Okay.
listen. That's so you're a mess. You're a mess. Well, I can honestly say my go-to comfort food is blue chips and
What?
dark chocolate sea salt caramel. So I'm like,
Stop it. Those are still healthy. That's why you look like that. That's why black don't crack. Come on, Casey. Get some ho-hos or some
oh
Twinkies
no,
or
no,
some
no. I can't
chocolate.
do it. I can't do it. I've never been a fan. Never been a fan.
Uh
But isn't that true though? If you
yeah.
ask your people, if you ask your team members, what are you tuning into and
Yeah.
why? That can give you
Revealing.
some insight into what's happening from a consumer group that really can be valuable to organizations. So I love that
Yeah.
idea of first having the internal conversations before you start having external ones with consumers. So those internal focus groups would be great to do.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And you know what? We kind of skirted around the word resilience,
Oh yeah.
and how important it's going to be. And I just saw an article yesterday about how mental health is going to just be crazy because people are
Yeah.
like we've just never known this. And just a couple words on like your definition of resilience in
Hmm.
this new virtual world, because I believe that it has changed.
So mine is steadfast because I've
Uh,
never looked at resilience as the bounce back. I've always looked at
okay.
resilience as sustained determination,
Mm,
sustaining your determination.
love that.
So if we look at resilience as this bounce back, we don't know when you're going to be bouncing back from this. So let's look at it more from how do I sustain determination to keep showing up every single day in some way, shape, or form. Even when I have a day that I'm a little off, did I still show up enough for the people that I love, the people that are important to me? And maybe I did have a rough day. Maybe I had a day where I was a little more down in my blues because it was weighing on me a little heavier. But sustaining that determination that I'm going to find a way to navigate this difficult, these circumstances, this uncertainty. That's more how
Yeah,
I look at resilience. I've
I
always
love
looked at
it.
that since I was young. So sustained determination is the way that I look at staying resilient.
I love that. I started this little chalkboard series, and I asked people. I was like, so in the morning I get up and I'm a praying woman, and I'm not ashamed to say that.
Yes.
So I get up and do that, and I look in the mirror every day. So what are you going to do today that's going to change yourself? That's going to change someone else. That's going to make your family and community better. And it's a tough conversation, especially when like I already had my hair looks crazy. Not today. I did it for y'all.
I appreciate
Um,
that.
but like like you have to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and say, listen, I was built for this. This is not going to be the
Mm,
end of me, that I'm like so and so. And then I take it to my journal and I use this day one journal
mm.
every day, and I try and put something in there. It's like an amazing tool. What tools do you use? Any books you're reading other than ones we've written? Because those are amazing. Y'all go and get those. But anything else that you can think of to share with people so that they can say, what, let me use this time to actually make myself better. And these are the tools in order to do them.
So I'm I'm a voracious researcher of tools and resources, and it's
Yeah.
crazy. And literally, I'm surrounded by all kinds of papers I've printed, articles. I mean, just nuts with wanting to know what people are thinking, what they're sharing, what
Yeah.
they're talking about. That's my curiosity. And so, one of the things that my grandfather taught us, because that's who raised me, my grandparents. And so I am an offspring of the greatest generation. So my
Mm,
grandparents are part of that generation. And so one of the things that I started seeing bubble up, and Michelle, you're living with them. Could we be
yeah.
seeing the next greatest generation emerging right now? Because these kids, right, that are coming up, right, that they're talking about, Gen Z and millennials
Yep.
are coming up and they have witnessed 9/11, the Great Recession, and now a pandemic.
Yeah.
So how are we arming them and preparing them, as, adults, or I like to call us, let's reach back to our kid part, our kidult self,
Yeah.
right? Like, so that we have that kid-like energy and thinking, but also that adult sensibility. So this is a book that I'm actually looking at right now,
Oh,
Becoming a
wow.
Better Grown-Up. And it's by Brad Montague. I love him to death. He's the guy that actually created Kid President. And he talks about becoming better grown-ups. So they do what they see. And it's
Yes,
not
good.
just your immediate family. It's the kids in your neighborhood. They're watching, right? It's your niece, your nephew, right? It's other people's children. They're watching. And they're
Yeah.
watching how we're behaving as adults and grown-ups. And so I start to think about, how am I modeling for that next generation of dreamers, believers, inspirers, the next catalysts? And so the more that I start to realize, I got to show up a certain way. And my grandfather would always say, check your want to. You got to check your want to every morning. He said, you can't do anything with a broke want to, which is
Ooh,
true. You got to check your
yeah.
want to. Do you want to be better? Do you want to be, on point? Do you want to be advancing a hope, a dream, an aspiration? And grade yourself at the end of the day. It's just to
Wow.
pass or fail. Did you do something? Even if it was one little thing. And so the more that I start to realize that, that's what I'm doing on the regular, right? It's becoming a better grown-up. And I'm doing
So
that on behalf of the next generation.
I really love that. So I'm going to put your 1, 2, your grandfather's 1, 2 in my best Oakland voice. Microphone check, 1, 2, be better. All solid.
That's
Okay. I had to throw that out there. Look, I'm
come on,
talented. Okay.
come on. No,
So,
I love Oakland. Oh, wait, we've got some funny stories about Marshawn
yo, but
Lynch.
we,
We
we,
love Marshawn Lynch
oh
in
no,
this house.
yeah, okay. We'll talk about
We'll
that when we
talk
get
about that's a
together.
whole nother
Yeah,
conversation
yeah,
too.
exactly. We might bring these folks along with us, but maybe not. Cause like I got,
Yes, yes.
okay. So I want to, I'm look, for my entire life I've been a business development, sales executive, but that means that I have to be prepared. I need to understand, I need to listen, like really dig into stuff. So when I did some research about you, I love the fact, because my favorite book is The Alchemist, hands down
Oh,
favorite book of all time. And you wrote, or you said someplace, that it was an amazing book, and then you had to brag that you spent actually a week
oh
with the
yes.
author in
Oh,
in
absolutely.
Paris.
But Paulo
Okay, in
Coelho,
Paris. Come
that's my
on, yo,
man's. Oh
yo.
my God. Yeah, I
So
have to drop that because that's a rarity, right? To get to spend time with,
what?
someone. I mean, he's a literary treasure.
No,
He's a
he is.
literary treasure, and he's an amazing human being. But even more so, he revealed little ways that he works on his creative process,
Yeah,
and it was eye opening to me, but also was liberating, because what he basically told me is there's no process; it's yours, and it's whatever the day brings to you.
love that.
How about that, right? So
Yeah, we try and put it in a box, and there isn't one, or then it's not creative. I never thought about that until you just
But
said
look
that.
at what we're dealing with right now, all this
Yeah,
uncertainty. But what if you were so formulaic in your creative process and the way you problem solve? You're struggling right now because
yeah.
you don't know how to navigate any of this uncertainty. But it's those who have the ability to pivot, to shift, right? To change the way they approach things, but also to arm themselves with curiosity. Like, who's doing something? Who's looking at new things? So I actually took this course. So I took this course, virtual improv games. So with
Mm,
this amazing woman who has design insights, and I took this course. She's a Stanford D School alum, right? She's this great visionary, Dana, right? And so I took that course because I said, well, if I have to be engaging on a screen, I need to have more arrows in my quiver, if you will, more tools. And so I was curious enough to want to add to that and to pivot the way that I actually do my engagement on and with an audience. And the more that you start
wow.
to realize it's not going to be traditional, you have to start looking at non-traditional approaches to things. You have to start surprise and delight yourself first. So that was one
Wow.
of the things that I
Yeah.
started to realize
Yeah,
was
that's
finding new ways to go through my creative process. But I learned that from Paulo Coelho, right? Is that there really is no process. It's whatever the day is presenting to you and
love
advancing
that.
that idea each day. So that's the whole idea, is advance the idea each day and repeat and repeat and repeat. And you may look up and that idea that you thought was going to be this actually turns out to be that. And it's even more amazing.
You know what? I would love to pivot into this conversation because what an amazing segue. So I just registered for this class at eCornell. And it's diversity and inclusion. Look, I was born in diversity and inclusion, but I want to understand how companies are looking at it because I can't change it until I understand it. So let's talk about this. And we could talk, I want to talk super transparently. A lot of brands, because there is a cultural currency that has moved up, like we've seen it, but now it's at the forefront. D nice, right?
I'm a proud member, Club Quarantine.
Okay, so D Nice, 150,000 brands reached out to me to say, how do I get to him? I was like, but you don't have a right to him because you haven't been transparent and there's no one at the table to even have a conversation with him because you never hired anyone like him. Travis Scott in a video game, we see this whole culture manifesting itself, right? And so brands haven't hired people that are creative or innovative or culturally different, right? That grew up with their grandparents or that grew up in Oakland because they didn't think there was a need. Man, what a need now. So how do brands like check themselves, right? To figure out how they actually make their business, their teams more culturally relevant?
So everyone wants to always chase this word influencer, right? And come on, I knew I'd set you off as soon as I said that. I knew I would set you off as soon as I said that. So what I say, it's not an influencer, it's who's having impact, who's having true impact right now, right? And who's been having impact, right? Sometimes really on the DL, right? They've been steady doing their thing and never deviating from their message, right? From their true message and what they're about. And you're just discovering them now.
Right. We've seen, we've known
what is that? What is that? I'm a 20-year overnight sensation.
Yeah.
I've been doing this. This isn't something new for me. You're just discovering me. And so the more that I think brands start to realize who are the people who have been playing the long game.
Yeah.
Who are the people that have been staying in it? Even when people said, you need to pivot and get out of that. Nah, I'm going to stay in this. I'm going to reimagining what I'm doing, but I'm not going to deviate from what I believe in is my calling. And so the more that they can actually have people mining for that talent, mining for those voices, looking for that, then how does that align with my brand? Because you don't want to be doing something that's so out of sorts for your brand that it doesn't make any sense. What is that aligning to within my brand? Our principles, our culture, our beliefs, or what we want to stretch to. And we want to be genuine about this. It's not just a sometimey, hey, flavor of the month moment. No, we want to be, we've been talking about this already, so you can tell the backstory. I think it's so important for brands to recognize who's been doing this for a long time, who's been true to the effort, and then let's find a way to reach that person, not just, oh my gosh, D Nice is blowing up. We need to find a way to get in there.
Stop it. Yeah.
Honestly,
the time has passed. Yeah, really. And what a great time for companies to pivot and be more relevant because there's this lag in time. You have an opportunity to now at least try and come up a little bit and look internally and say, you know what? Like the best ideas sometimes don't come from the person with the biggest title, right? Like we've seen this over and over and over again in our community. And man, like when brands understand that, I'm gonna give a compliment to somebody because I've worked with them for so long. But Mark Pritchard and P&G, let me tell you something. They speak it, they live it because those hallways, I've seen who's running the different brand teams. I'm seeing who's being elevated. Damon Jones just became the global head of communication. He's a brother. Marco Northern, who runs their home care. Stephanie Robertson, Olay. Like I could go on and Omar Goff from Old Spice. All people from the community because they're trying to sell products and services and give back to a community that they know is valuable. Like, yo, brands need to pay attention. So I just had to throw that out there.
No, I think
they're not paying me. Look, I'm not a P&G employee, but I see greatness. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, yes, you have to recognize when someone's doing it well. Right. And I think they deserve to be, a shout out. I think that's important. But I also think brands that aren't doing it need to do case studies on the ones that are doing it well.
Word. That's a word.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a word.
Pay
and Nike is
attention
another
to who's
brand
doing it well.
Nike is another brand. Like they get it. Like they're just amazing. So I want to pivot to your book. No pun intended. So rules of the rubber ball. First of all, there's so many stories in that. Find and sustain your life's work. Right. First of all, I love the fact that people told you no, and then ESPN is like, you know what? This like makes so much sense, and it's still in alignment. That's another word. So I gave you one adjective, curious. I think the other word for you is alignment, and it's so important for success because when you're aligned,
Yeah.
if you look at the history of your life, you did this, you were in the Air Force, but you were a trainer, right? Because you wanted to do it. When you asked to be a trainer in the Air Force, they said no. You're like, but I'm still going to do this on the side because I love it. And then you happen to do it for a school, and the Philadelphia 76ers see you. Like, because you were so apparent and you had alignment and you didn't step away because it didn't pay you, you didn't stop doing it.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's one thing in your book that I love, and it's chapter 6, expect the unexpected. Who the hell expected this? Tell me how that
Right.
book makes this time in our lives relevant.
Well, that rule, expect, and I always like to throw in there, and respect the unexpected,
Oh, like that.
right? And so
Yep.
how are you showing up and being present so that you can see these opportunities, these unexpected moments? And I think we have to first and foremost decide to be present. As my grandfather would say, be where your feet are. Be where your feet
Yo,
are,
did
right?
your
So be
grandmother? I know
present.
your grandmother has some good advice too. You keep mentioning your grandfather. Grandmothers are like,
No,
come
wait,
on.
no, wait, no. So wait. So the origin of it is from my mom, right? From my
Okay,
grandmother.
okay, okay.
But the origin goes even further back from my nana Carroll, right? So that's my
Okay, got
grandfather's
it. Because I'm like,
mom,
wait a
right?
minute,
So oh
hold
yeah,
on.
we can tell some stories about the matriarchs in my life. Oh my gosh, there's plenty of them because Miss Lane is one of the people that I actually mentioned in the book, and Miss Lane was the person who always told me always be on the lookout for opportunities that others aren't seeing. And the more
Mm,
that you show up and you stay present, the unexpected will happen. She says, look at all the things, look at your trajectory,
wow.
look at the things that have happened in your journey. And so I think always showing up and always being aware that something unexpected and magical could happen today. So approaching each day with this level of wonder, right, and possibility has always been my thing. And I go all the way back to when I was, in my youth. It was important for me to stay curious. So curiosity is at the root of wonder and magic and the unexpected happening more often than
Yeah,
not. And I think the more that we realize that we're dealing in the unexpected right now, we are dealing with really unsettling, uncertain times. So the more that
yeah,
you realize, okay, how do I just show up? And how do I stay in alignment with what I'm about and what I care about? And repeat and repeat and repeat. And also trust and believe that hard work never goes unrewarded.
yeah.
It
I
just
love
might
that.
not happen when you want it to. And I think that's
Or from
so
who
important.
you
Someone
expect
actually
it
asked
from.
that question, right? Someone asked that question. Where did I put that one at? So we got questions from folks. And we got this one question, how to engage clients even when you're still here and you have to support them and their families. Like, how are you staying engaged, right,
Yeah.
as a brand, as an organization? And even
Yep.
more so, how do you not look like you're being an opportunist and taking advantage of something? If people are struggling, should I be marketing? Should
Yeah.
I be doing that kind of effort? And I think just staying in alignment and the way that you'll show up and the way that you're sharing your messages and the way that you're marketing, as long as that's still truthful and you're not putting on airs or trying to be insensitive to what's going on, tone deaf, as they say, right?
Yeah.
And you're realizing that, you know what? You might be having a rough day today. So let me lead with empathy first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let me lead with empathy first. All my messaging, all my conversations, if I do that, I'm already in a better position because people
Yeah.
appreciate you saying that and recognizing that. Listen, I've been leaving little care packages for the parents in my neighborhood, leaving books or a little article or send them stuff because I know
Yeah.
they're dealing with it. Your kids are home, right? They're
Yeah.
doing whatever kind of distance learning they're trying to. You're trying to, it's hard. So to realize that we're talking about the kids, the kids, the kids, I said, but what about their parents? How are we
Yeah.
feeding them and giving them some
Yeah.
lifelines and some things? And so just thinking about how to lead with empathy first and then go from there. So the more that you are
Yeah.
recognizing, starting off with empathy, being present, then you can start to see, quote unquote, what is unexpected. Because it's really not, it's very visible. You see it because you're showing up. So I
Yeah.
think that whole idea of expect and respect the unexpected is very appropriate right now.
Yeah. So I'll tell you something that was passed down from generations for me, and that faith and fear cannot be present at the same time. Matter of fact, you can't have faith unless there's been some fear and you've gotten rid of it. So like if we're living and walking in fear, you're gonna make a
Oh,
mistake. Like it's not possible that you can't, because you're not thinking logically, because now you're making an emotional decision instead of a logical decision. So I agree with everything that you said. And you know, a lot of brands, like we've seen some brands make some terrible mistakes. I'm not going to even mention them, but you got to put that behind you and move forward and have the right people at the table in order to make a wise decision that's, I hate the word authentic, but authentic to what you're trying to do. So I love all of that.
yeah, no, that's brilliant. And I think the more that we're being mindful of all that everyone is dealing with and not just being tone deaf or projecting because I'm good doesn't mean, everybody should be good, right? No, but everyone is actually, a lot of people are discovering some things about themselves in this that they
Yeah.
didn't know, right? They had this latent fear, anxiety, feelings, their well-being being challenged, all these things. And all of a sudden now these things are bubbling up and they don't know how to manage that. And you mentioned it in the intro a little bit, we are having this conversation around well-being.
Yeah.
So how are we paying attention to someone else's well-being
Yeah. It's
before we even
important.
start about talk about doing business, right? Or advancing our brand, right? Or whatever our, our plan, our strategy, whatever. How how are you doing today? How are you showing up? How are you feeling? What is that thing that you are most stressed about?
Yeah.
What is the difficult thing you're dealing with right now? Like asking that question and then move beyond that. I just think that this
Yeah.
is such an amazing moment in time. I literally said divisiveness took a holiday and humanity for the win.
Yeah.
Humanity has been showing itself so amazingly right now. It's
You
beautiful
know,
to see.
it really is. You know, I was pleasantly surprised. I had an ad color board meeting the other day. I have the honor and privilege of sitting on the ad color board. You know it very well.
I
Tiffany
know it.
Warren created this
Yes. Tiffany,
amazing
Tiffany
organization.
Warren,
Yeah,
game
yo,
changer.
yeah, for sure. And you know, we went around. So, you know, I thought we were going to talk about agenda and business development and all these things. And what we did as a community, we came together, all of these beautiful, different people that work in this industry, and we just said how we were feeling, what we were doing. And then we're going to have another meeting about business. But like, how much respect do I have for this organization, for my fellow peers? And it was genuine, you know. And if brands could understand that if you do good, you're going to get good back in return, right? Now,
Yes.
don't
Oh,
do it
that
authentically.
what's that saying?
It's,
It doing well by doing good, right?
yes, doing well by doing good.
There's this
I love
great
that.
article. I'm going to share a lot of these resources that I'm talking about. So we'll,
Yeah, that's
WSB will be
great.
able to send out to the people who've shared their contact info. But there was an article that came out yesterday, which was really wonderful. And it was 20 questions to ask instead of how are you doing right now?
Ah, I love that. Yeah, I want to send that. Text that to me. I want to get it
Yes,
before
I
everyone
will.
else.
And so I highlighted the ones that really were great to me. How are you taking care of yourself today?
Hmm. I
What's
love
your
that.
COVID comfort food? I love this. What habit have you started or broken during the quarantine? I just think that's
Good.
so insightful, right? And then you can go a little deeper. What's the most generous act you've seen recently?
Yeah.
What is that? Actually, Michelle, you can answer that one. What's the most generous act you've seen recently?
Can I? So we only have a few. We have like 5, 7 more minutes. So I'm going to tell you two things that one was crazy, and then the other one I want to just talk about something that I've done and that my group of friends have done. So I was at Walmart. I just had to tell this funny story. I was at Walgreens, and I kind of have like seasonal allergies. So I had my mask and I had my gloves on. I went in there to get something that I really needed, and I must have coughed, but I didn't realize I coughed. So when I get outside, this woman yells at me. She's like, "You coughed." I was like, are you crazy? I have allergies. So I just had to share that story because that was nuts. Okay, in this time. But the other thing that I'm doing, you know what my family did? We went down the list of everyone that supports our family, whether it
Mm.
is the people who do my daughter's hair, my hairdresser, our cleaning people,
Mhm.
or our babysitter who obviously can't come, and we've decided to actually pay them in some kind of way,
Mm.
right? So we're sending them money, and like the person who helps us with our home, she's like, oh my god, like how amazing. And I just think we all have the ability at this time. And I'm, like I said, I'm a praying woman, and I blessed that. I was like, listen, I'm doing this from the goodness of my heart, but I know that God has me and He has my family, and I will never want or need anything. And so and all my girlfriends are doing the same thing. How
Mm.
amazing. And the last thing I'll say is I'm on this prayer call, and this woman missionary, Ellen K. Clark, that she has 3 times a day, and I jump on that call. I mean, we're praying for one another, and how
Mm.
valuable is that? You know what I mean? And to support her ministry. So I just think there's something that we can all do to give back if we move out of our own way and stop feeling bad about the situation and
What you
ourselves.
just said, get out of the way. You got to get out of your way, right? I think
Yeah,
that's one
man.
of the key things. And you can take that back to, your personal, you can take it back to business, get out of the way, right?
Yes.
Recognize how you're supporting your people first. I love
Yep.
seeing, different things of sports teams that are saying to their players, you know what, take care of your families. We're not sending
Yeah.
you the off-season training program for NFL team. The Saints actually just announced that. They
Love
said, we're
that.
not worrying about that, right? Take care of your families. And I think, first and foremost, make sure you're taking care of your loved ones and the people that you care most about. Then you can start thinking about these other things. And I think the more that we start to recognize the importance of, are you good? Are you good? And
Yeah.
genuinely mean that, then you can move forward with any kind of insights, resources, strategies, all those things.
Right.
But that roll call, that regular roll call with your team, I think is important. My bonus daughter, actually every Thursday they have partios, right? So it's
Oh,
on, so they go out on the patio or outside or on the steps or whatever, wherever they can, and they basically grab their libation of choice or drink of choice and just
love
catch
that.
up. How are you doing? What's
It's
been going on
important.
this week? So I think the more that we start to recognize that we first need to look after each other, then we can look after our business. And a lot of people, are dealing with businesses being shuttered, right? Furloughing teams, rifts,
Yeah.
downsizing, all these things that are going on. But just because you had to do that, does that mean you stop connecting and checking on those people?
Yeah, don't feel guilty about it. It's like we understand it's business, but if you own up to that and you're honest and open, like people have respect for that.
Yes, yes. So how do we get beyond being transactional and how do we tend to be
Yeah.
more transformational?
Yeah,
I
I
think
love
it's
that.
so important
T
for
for
us to be
T.
that way, right? And the more that we're thinking about that, then that applies to all of your endeavors, personal and professional,
Yeah, I
right?
love
It's
that.
moving beyond being transactional and being more transformational.
Yep. So now, before we get off, it's 1:44. I'm a timekeeper.
What? What? That
It
went
went fast,
that went
way
in a
too
blink.
fast. Oh man. Can we do a little? Can we have a little fun?
Yes. I'm
Okay,
all
because
about that. I'm all about that. What you got proposing? What are you
okay,
proposing?
you ready? So, MJ or LeBron?
Kobe.
You just okay. Kobe, and look, yo, let me tell you something. Black Mamba, yo, like so much. I just
That's a
watched one of my.
personal answer. It's a personal answer. That's why.
Okay, that's fine. Beer or wine?
Sparkling water.
You
I
don't
don't
drink?
drink.
I don't
Nope.
trust anybody who doesn't drink. Okay,
Wait,
what is
my
wrong with
wife
you?
my wife is all about every wine. So when you go and when we travel and people give you the gift set right in your room and stuff, they always give me wine. I'm the one that takes the extra towels from the hotel and brings it back for my wife, and she's always like, "What you got? What you got for me?" So wine is in our house, absolutely, but I'm not about any libations except sparkling water. That's me.
Okay, so this is the last one. This is the last one, and then we'll close out, and I'll give you final word, and then we'll thank the Washington Speaker Bureau for bringing this dope ass conversation together. Okay, I hope everyone recognizes that, and I put my lashes on for them.
Yes.
Um, Hip hop or R&B?
Hip hop. You know why?
Why?
Because because they
And
sample
li-
all the R&B.
yes,
So I get the best of both.
love it. Guess it.
So,
But you
right.
could never, you know what? You're probably a badass kid because then we would ask you, you would think of this innovative, creative way to get around the real question and come up with your
Oh,
own.
oh, I get accused. I get accused. I continue to get accused. Like, you always find a way to dance around. I'm like,
See,
absolutely. Absolutely. Yes,
I
that's
guess
what
that's
I
why it's
do.
called Catalyst with a K.
Yes, exactly. Right. Even split that up. Right. So
No.
that's my nature. I don't know how not to be that way.
So final word, and then we'll thank Washington Speakers Bureau for pulling this together.
So I really want to leave this notion that I know that everyone is dealing with collective loss right now. David Kessler wrote this amazing book called Finding Meaning, the sixth stage of grief. And
Mm,
he is a protege of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who came up with the five stages of grief. There's an
mm-hmm.
amazing podcast with him and Brene Brown. You need to tune into that. It's amazing because he talks about we are all dealing with some level of loss. And no one's
Yeah,
loss is more important than anyone else's. It's theirs. So let's
yeah,
recognize and acknowledge that. And then let's recognize that we have an opportunity and a decision. We can be a pessimist, or we could be an optimist.
yeah.
I choose to be an optimist. And an optimist sees
Okay.
the opportunity in every difficulty. And so that's going to be my point of view and my approach to this. And so I hope everybody brings an optimistic mindset to all that we're dealing with right now. We're going to get to the other side of this. It's going to be a brave new world, but I'm telling you, I'm showing up for it. Don't you worry.
I love that. And then I'll just jump on that before we tune out and say, listen, there's so much empathy for anybody who's lost somebody. I had COVID. I was like sick. I was like, yo, I'm not going to make it. For anybody who's sick and all the people that are serving this country. I said, my husband's in the military and all of the professionals that have to go to work. Like, we're sending you so much love, but my word to them, and this too shall pass. Because we are a
Mm,
resilient group of people when we come together. And the good news in all this, you see us binding together, neighbors coming together, walking, saying hi, being courteous. Like, how powerful is that? And if we could take on that spirit when this is gone, if we can
yes.
have a memory of what is good, man, I'm
Yes.
telling you, this country will be better. I sound like I'm running for president. Better,
Yeah.
stronger, you know what I mean? And more
Well, the
productive
globe
and
will be better.
profitable.
The
It
globe will be
will.
better
It
because that's
will,
what's
my
amazing
friends.
is the whole world is dealing with the same thing. It is such a rare
Together.
moment in humanity and
Yes,
together.
absolutely.
So done
It
and
level
done.
set all of us, level set all of us.
Yes.
I love you. I love the Washington Speakers Bureau. Listen, and if you guys have not gone on to see the other speakers, like, we might be like, all right, but they got some other dope people in the
No
lineup.
doubt.
And they're just doing such an amazing job of keeping conversations going, keeping us
Mm.
connected, making sure that the clients they serve have options. So I love them for that. Even producing this in such a professional way. They had us on this 30 minutes early to make sure we weren't gonna
Yeah.
mess up.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And
Right,
we did it a
Casey?
day before. Check. No, they ain't messing around. They ain't
Exactly.
messing
Double
around.
check, check, check,
Yes.
check.
Yeah. A lot of mic checks. 1 2 1 2s. Yes.
Exactly.
But thank you, Michelle.
Anyway,
I
thank you so
appreciate
much.
you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sending you love. We love you. Washington Speakers Bureau. And we hope to see you again soon.